Okay, welcome to the review of The Healing Pool by Gabriel Maestas. Sorry if I got that wrong, Gabriel. I am really bad with names. I've got some notes here, and let me just see what we got. So, as mentioned earlier, this is a novel by Gabriel Maestas. And by the way, y'all, it's raining pretty hard outside, so if you can hear that in the background, then I apologize. So this is a novella. It's about 94 pages long, so as you can see here, it's not very thick. Pretty quick read. It was released on April 9th of 2025, and I didn't see an age range set for it. I think this is probably appropriate for like teenagers on up. Maybe slightly younger, but I don't know. I don't have children, so I'm not sure I'm really qualified to evaluate that. So there's the introduction. So now the setting. So this is a somewhat of a road trip novella, you could say, and it takes place in New Mexico, and the road trip is to get to a holy site. There's a few characters. I think they're from California, but I think the story, by the time it begins, they're in New Mexico, or if they're not, then they're on a road headed that way. I think it's in the town of Santa Fe is where they're headed towards, which I hear is a lovely place, but haven't had the privilege of going there myself. Okay, so the characters. So I have 4 on the list here. There's some minor characters, but the main ones are Olivia, Hilde, and Harriet. And Olivia and Hilde have a plot. Well, I guess this is really more the plot, but they have a story that's in 2025. Harriet and Hilde have a story in 1954. So Hilde is in the story much earlier and in present day. There's also a character named Victor, who I think he's also in like the 1954 timeline. And those are like the 4 main characters. I thought that they were all interesting in their own way. They each kind of represent like a different aspect of, faith and healing. Olivia actually comes across as kind of a bit of a skeptic when it comes to faith, which I guess is really more about the themes, but I don't know what else to say about the characters without really spoiling things, so I think I'll just leave it there for the character section. Let's see. And I'm sorry, my main desktop computer, the fan is really loud right now, so between that and the rain, I apologize if there's background noise. So the plot, as I mentioned earlier, there's a road trip to a healing pool or a holy site in New Mexico, and there's these challenges along the way. They run into this guy named Victor, who is kind of a generous stranger. I guess I don't really know much to say about the plot without spoiling things too much. I think I'll just leave it at that. So I would say that faith is really like the primary theme for sure. There's also family, and there's also how faith and family can heal a person, and sort of combinations thereof. I thought it was interesting. I instinctively wrote down those 3 themes, and later on kind of connected those to like the 3 characters, because Olivia, Hilde, and Harriet, the way that they're related to each other, Harriet is Hilde's mother, and then Hilde is, I believe, Olivia's grandmother. And one thing I noted on my Substack article is there's like a theme of trinities that sometimes plays out in religions, mythologies, and there's some old Latin saying that's like everything that comes in 3s is perfect. And I thought it was interesting that I wrote down 3 themes, and yet there's these 3 generations of women, and in a way they kind of all represent a different theme themselves. But I don't know. I guess that's just like my opinion, So inside the actor's studio, Gabriel is on, he's a writer from New Mexico. He's on Substack, and that's really all I have listed for him here. You can find him on Goodreads and Amazon. He's got, he also has his own website, so you can definitely find out more information. I think his Substack has Gabriel Maestas Reads, has all the links in there, but he definitely has a pretty strong online presence. So critiques. So I don't have much to say about a book of this length. It's a novella, so naturally it's pretty short. I am appreciating the fact that you have a book that's like relatively short. It gets to the point, and it says what it means to say. And I guess that's really not something specific to this book. It's really just novellas in general. Now, I do have my bookmarking here at one spot. I wanted to point one thing out. I hope the author doesn't mind me showing a particular page from the book. But without going over the whole text, actually, I guess I'll just close it here because I can just describe it to you. But There is a page where the author describes, and this is really nitpicky, by the way, but I'm mentioning this for the sake of completeness because I like to be comprehensive. There's a guy, a Victor, he has his 1950s truck, and it's described as having a bench seat, but also as having a manual transmission. And when I first read that, I thought, wait a minute, is that like a mistake or something? And then I remembered that long time ago, because I'm an old guy, back in the 90s. My grandmother's neighbor had a 1950s Chevy. I don't remember what kind it was. I think it was a Chevy, but I remember he had this column shifter. They called it 3 on a tree back in the day. And it was actually a manual transmission that was on like the column, like the steering wheel column of the car. And you practically don't see, though, like today you don't really see something like that. It's practically unheard of. They do have paddle shifters on some cars these days, but 3 on a tree was like a really unique thing because if I remember correctly, I only ever saw them on trucks, like trucks from like the 50s. And so my first thought when I read that was, I'm like, how could there be a bench seat if he's got a manual transmission? Because when I hear manual, I think of like a stick shift. And it's really, this is again nitpicky, but I remember thinking like young people today might not, they might get confused by that and not know that context because, I'm like way past that. I'm kind of in middle age now, so I think if you're a younger reader, that might be confusing. And I remember thinking that like as a writer, one of my beta readers, because I'm an old guy, I'm like in my 40s. One of my beta readers when I was writing my own book was a 21-year-old girl or young woman, I guess you could say, and she pointed out a lot of things to me that about my own writing. And I was like, oh, because I'm an older person and I know old people stuff because I'm, kind of old. Like I make assumptions about what other people know, and sometimes I'm wrong about that. So that's kind of splitting hairs, but I just thought I would mention that. So if you're looking at, let's see, what page was it here? It was page 44. So if you read that on page 44, I think, now that I've said all that and I've had my mini rants, sorry y'all, I'm assuming that's what Gabriel meant, was that it's like a 3 on a tree transmission. Honestly, the author is probably the person who can clarify that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So if you get confused by that particular detail, I'll point that out to you. But again, that's really not much of a critique. I just thought I would mention that because, well, that's just me being me. So, okay, so conclusions. I only have 2 things written down here. One is that it's a short read, which I already have listed here. And then I guess the conclusion really is that if you like books that are about faith, and if you like books that are short in duration, like you're looking for like a pretty quick read, I think that you'll like this book. That would be my conclusion based upon what I read here. So I don't think I have much for spoilers. I actually have none question mark written here in my notes. Sorry. It's a short book and it's to the point. So I don't think that I don't really have many spoilers listed here. Really, because I think the only spoilers I would have, I don't know of a way to talk about this book without pretty much just giving away the ending. And so I really, I guess, don't have much else to say on it other than, I think this is a pretty good book. I'm curious what else Gabriel is working on. I think he's primarily a horror writer, but I can't speak for the guy. Check out his stuff on Substack, Amazon, Goodreads if you want to see more. And you can look up other reviews and stuff like that. But other than that, I guess I don't have much else to say for today, except that it's really raining outside, and it's in Texas. That's a miracle. So I guess that's all, y'all. And I will see you next time. That's really all I have. So take care. Have a good one. Video over!